All the way back in 2020, then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau banned over 1,500 makes and models of firearms, saying it was an imminent priority to buy back those guns from owners and get them off the streets. 5 years later, the Carney government is finally moving ahead with that plan. But just as a pilot program was about to get underway, Minister of Public Safety Gary Anandasangaree was recorded in a private conversation saying that there is essentially no logic to the plan, and it's entirely politically motivated. The Liberals have since scrambled to defend the gun buyback program, which is forging ahead regardless. But Anandasangaree's comments made an already somewhat unpopular program seem even less necessary. So let's look at the facts around the gun buyback program. Are these banned firearms responsible for gun violence and other crimes in the country? Is the buyback a worthwhile use of taxpayer dollars? And is the program actually an important step to keep Canadians safe, or simply playing politics? On April 18th and 19th, 2020, a 51-year-old man named Gabriel Wortman shot and killed 22 people, as well as setting multiple fires in Nova Scotia, until he was eventually shot and killed by the RCMP. It was the deadliest shooting rampage in Canadian history. The next month, Justin Trudeau announced an immediate ban on 1,500 makes and models of military-grade assault-style weapons, including 2 of the 5 guns that were used by Wortman. All of the 5 guns Wortman used were acquired illegally, 3 of which were smuggled in from the United States. The move was not universally liked, not even close. First, there was the cost. While Trudeau's government estimated the buyback would cost between $47 to $756 million, others estimated that the costs could range all the way up to nearly $7 billion. But the bigger pushback had to do with the guns themselves and who owns them. The government has said in the past that those who want to continue to hunt or use guns for sport shooting have over 19,000 options available, and that the ban only affected weapons designed for killing people. But in a lot of cases, the government banned guns that look scary, even if those guns have hunting or recreational uses. Legal gun owners, who had already gone through a lot of steps to get their guns in the first place, felt that they were not part of the problem and should not have to give up their guns. Despite the initial urgency from Trudeau, an amnesty order was put into place on May 1st, 2020, that was extended until October 30th, 2025. In simple terms, the buyback was delayed, giving owners time to comply with the new laws and keeping the firearms in question in their possession, although with tighter restrictions on when or how they could move or use those firearms. Flash forward to 2025, Mark Carney's government committed in their election campaign to honor Trudeau's buyback plan, a plan that is somewhat popular with pockets of Liberal voters and very unpopular among Conservative voters. Nevertheless, they were delivering on their promise, and much of the debate around the program had been exhausted in previous years. Enter Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasangaree. Anandasangaree has managed to simultaneously make himself look grossly incompetent, while also calling into question the credibility of the entire program just about every time he opens his mouth. And in September, in a secretly recorded conversation, Anandasangaree implied he didn't understand the logic of the gun buyback program, and that the program was politically motivated because it's popular in Quebec. He also said that if he could start over, he would do things entirely differently. Then, to put further icing on the cake, a few days later, Anandasangaree announced that the buyback is voluntary and that no one will have their weapons confiscated. It isn't voluntary. The only choice gun owners have is to surrender their gun or have it rendered inoperable. Clearly, Anandasangaree doesn't understand or believe in the gun buyback. But the question is, should we? Are the guns targeted in the buyback causing crime? Will Canadians be safer if they're off the streets? That question is very difficult to answer conclusively, although there is some strong evidence to consider. In 2023, there were 14,416 incidents of firearm-related violent crime, accounting for 2.6% of all violent crime that year in Canada. Shootings were responsible for 289 homicides, which was 38% of all homicides in the country. To judge the efficacy of the gun buyback program, we can ask 3 questions. What type of guns are used in crime? Who is using them? And where are they getting them? When it comes to the type of gun, the answer almost half the time, 49% to be exact, is handguns. Handguns are not part of the current buyback because they were already targeted by a freeze through amendments to the Firearms Act back in December 2023. That amendment also introduced measures to reduce the production of illegal firearms, the distribution of patterns for 3D printed guns, and increased maximum penalties for smuggling and trafficking firearms and firearm parts. Essentially, individuals in Canada cannot purchase, sell, or transfer ownership of a handgun, but may continue to possess, use, and in very specific instances sell or transfer their handgun if they had it registered to them before October 21st, 2022. Despite this, handguns are used far more than any other type of firearm in crime. Rifles or shotguns are used 15% of the time, and fully automatic or sawed-off shotguns are used 4.7% of the time, while 31% of crime is committed with a firearm-like weapon or unknown type of firearm. These could include BB guns, air guns, flare guns, ghost guns, etc. Ghost guns are an important part of this category. Ghost guns are essentially untraceable guns that are illegally produced. The use of unknown types of firearms increased 13% from 2022 to 2023, and while the statistics do not distinguish how much of that is due to ghost guns, the use of 3D printed weapons or the import and distribution of parts which are used to build unmarked and untraceable firearms is a growing safety concern, one that, of course, has little or nothing to do with registered lawful gun owners. Handguns have also been the most common firearm causing homicides since 1995. In 2023, shootings were responsible for 38% of all homicides, and 56% of those were caused by handguns. So in general, the vast majority, around 80% of gun-related crimes in Canada are committed using guns that are not part of the Buyback program. Which brings us to our next question: who is using them? 45% of all shooting homicides in Canada in 2023 were related to confirmed or suspected organized crime or street gang activities. 64% of those, which were committed with, you guessed it, a handgun. So we know that although organized crime is responsible for nearly half of gun deaths in the country, we also know that they are generally not using assault-style firearms. So who owns the assault-style firearms that are being used in homicides and violent crimes? In the case of solved homicides, the accused did not have a valid license for the firearm 91% of the time. Now that's a lot of stats, so let me piece this together. The majority of murders with guns in Canada do not come from weapons that are part of the Buyback. The vast majority of those murders are not committed by the legal owners of legally acquired guns, nor by people who have acquired legal guns through illegal means, either illegal sale or theft. But a much higher percentage of murders committed with guns that are part of the Buyback are committed by the legal owners of the guns, as opposed to murders committed with handguns or unknown guns. We can come to two broad conclusions here. Technically, yes, Canadians who have legally acquired assault-style weapons have and will continue to use them for violent crime. But if a crime is committed with a gun in Canada, it is far more likely the gun was acquired illegally and that that gun is a handgun. So the third and final question: if most of the guns used in crime are illegal, where are they coming from? The biggest supplier is the United States. Through all of the talk about Canada locking down its borders to prevent fentanyl from flowing into the US, there should be greater talk about preventing American guns from ending up in Canada. In 2022, 90% of all crime-related handguns traced by police came from the United States, with Texas as the largest provider. In some American states, the private gun market is almost entirely unregulated, meaning it's very easy for a legally obtained gun in Texas to end up lost in the private market before being smuggled into Canada. A single pistol that makes its way from Texas to Canada may pass through half a dozen hands or more, some of them properly licensed, some not. This is part of why so little information exists about the origin of guns used in crimes in Canada. The sheer manpower required to track a gun to its source is not available. Technology has made this whole process easier, as individuals can purchase guns through online marketplaces on the dark web. But even as Canada has put measures in place to crack down on illegal smuggling, criminals have turned to shipping parts or selling patterns to 3D print gun components instead. Ghost gun blueprints can be bought and sold, but are often available for free on open source websites. Some of them are difficult to detect in X-ray or metal detector systems due to the use of plastic or epoxy resin. Often, individuals will purchase a proper commercial barrel and slide and 3D print the supporting parts. This is a growing problem, one that is much harder to trace and eliminate than preventing guns from being brought across the border. Some parts may be illegally brought over the border, while others are printed or sold in Canada. Suffice to say, there are a number of sources of the illegal guns in Canada, but almost none of them originate with legal gun owners. So to sum up, most gun crime in the country is done using handguns or something similar. About half that crime is committed by organized crime, and almost all of it is done with illegal guns, either smuggled in from another country or illegally manufactured. So despite what Anandasangaree and other liberals have said since his secret conversation has come to light, it's clear the buyback is not an especially effective use of taxpayer money when it comes to reducing gun crime in Canada. Will it eliminate some gun crimes? Definitely. But the stats tell us most crimes do not come from legal gun owners, or from the types of weapons targeted with the buyback. Generally, the largest impact of gun buyback is a reduction in accidental deaths and suicides. Of course, preventing those deaths is a positive. But with a price tag of nearly $1 billion, that money would almost certainly be better spent trying to reduce the number of illegal firearms in Canada. Across the country, various police forces are questioning whether they'll even participate in the gun buyback program. Alberta's Justice Minister has said outright that the province will not enforce it, and the OPP has said that they will not participate. And this may actually be the best outcome for the Liberals. The first pilot for the program is in Nova Scotia, which is usually a Liberal stronghold. This is all conjecture, but I expect the Liberals will likely roll out the program across parts of the country that want it, the Maritimes and Quebec, and then quietly allow it not to be enforced across the rest of the country. Just as Trudeau's government extended the amnesty period for so long it became another government's problem, Carney's government may take it a step further, being able to say they fulfilled their campaign promise, putting the blame on provinces and police forces that won't enforce the buybacks, and waiting for the conversation to quietly die down. Meanwhile, those who are in favor of the program will feel safer, with fewer of the scariest looking guns in circulation. It is, as Pierre Poilievre alleged, good politics. Meanwhile, to give the Liberals some credit, the former bill continues to be enforced to limit the distribution of gun parts and lessen illegal guns on the street. That is still a priority. But those efforts could likely use another $750 million, rather than attempting to buy back legal guns from licensed individuals who have never, and statistically will likely never, commit a crime.